Becca, you're still as inconsiderate and useless as ever. This trip was something my son and I were excited about. You, who had no part in planning it, can leave now. My mother-in-law starts criticizing me as soon as my husband steps away from the table. We were on a trip abroad that my husband wanted me to organize. Well, that she's going to be like that, I might as well go home. What happens between them after that doesn't concern me. I'm Becca, a married woman working for a company. Since my job is flexible, I mostly work from home, so I spend a lot of time there. My husband Jack always tries to show off and act like he's better than everyone else. He loves spending money, but never chips in for our household expenses. I didn't notice this side of him when we were dating, but after we got married and started living together, it became more obvious. His mom loves boasting about him. I've heard of moms who adore their sons, and I was ready for that to some extent, but she's stubborn and won't listen to anyone else's views, not even her husband's, because she thinks her son is the greatest. She really doesn't like me. Every time we see each other, she makes snarky comments. She's especially bothered by the fact that I'm financially comfortable relying on my son's income alone. She keeps pestering me, saying, "You're still young, you should get a job outside the house." I tried explaining countless times that I do work from home, but she just sees it as a part-time gig. She assumes I'm just pretending to work, sitting at my computer. She probably thinks I'm playing games all day instead of doing housework and sees me as a useless wife. My husband knows how I work, but he's never bothered to explain it to his mom. Even when she brings it up in front of him, he ignores it. I've asked him to clarify things, but he just wants us women to sort out ourselves and leaves it all to me. He even says he doesn't want to deal with problems. Once, when I kept pushing him to take action, he threw a completed divorce paper at me. It hurt to be treated like that, and I considered divorcing him. But I heard divorce is even more complicated than marriage. If it's harder than what we're going through now, it could be a bigger problem. So, I ended up giving in to my husband's argument. I realized that my husband always puts his mother first. It's frustrating, but I know I have to find a way to handle her without causing more trouble. I didn't agree to divorce because my feelings changed, but it seems like my husband thinks I'm still madly in love with him and didn't want to break up. His arrogant attitude keeps getting worse. It's cute when a child tries to act mature, but it's a major turnoff in an adult. I've learned to brush off his arrogant remarks and pretend not to notice his actions. There's another reason why I didn't divorce him, because of my husband's job. We live far away from my in-laws. We only see them once or twice a year. I thought I could handle that, especially when everyone was making a big deal about having 9 days off in a row. Even during vacations on weekdays, both my husband and I were usually working. For me, American holidays don't matter much since I adjust my schedule based on international needs. For my husband, he simply wasn't taking 9 consecutive days off according to the calendar. When he came home after his first day back at work, he suddenly said, "Let's go on a trip abroad." When I asked what he meant, he explained that his coworkers had taken time off to have a 9-day holiday for an overseas trip, and he felt left out. He was quite proud of his idea, but it just left me baffled by his childishness. Since I haven't traveled this year, I suggested we take a trip within the country. My husband has. I've never traveled overseas, so if we were to go abroad, he'd need to get a passport. It wouldn't be an issue with you. You're fluent in several languages. I studied abroad and traveled a lot before marriage. Besides English, I can speak Spanish and a bit of Chinese. If needed, when my mom back home got into Korean dramas, I learned Korean with her, but I haven't had much chance to use it, so I'm not very confident. Sure, I might be better at languages than my husband, but getting passports isn't as easy as he thinks. I tried to convince him to travel abroad in the summer or winter, but he wouldn't budge. Instead, despite having no experience, he chose the destination, took time off without permission, and expected me to handle the logistics. "It's not a guided tour. Why should I deal with strangers?" he even argued. He said English is universal, and we wouldn't have any problems, just the two of us. I thought maybe it would be okay, but before I knew it, he said, "Yeah, I'll make sure to bring Mom along. You'll handle that too, won't you?" Taking care of 2 inexperienced travelers is too much for me alone. "You should show some respect for your elders once in a while," he said. You might even earn some brownie points by doing so, my dear devoted wife. It's for your own benefit, Becca. You should appreciate it. He said it like he was doing me a favor. Arguing against it seemed pointless, so I quietly made the reservations as my husband instructed. I came up with a plan to handle everything, from applying for my mother-in-law's and husband's passports to booking flights and hotels. It was a lot of work, but to execute my plan, I patiently fulfilled all of my husband's wishes and crafted a flawless itinerary. On the day we flew overseas, my mother-in-law, who didn't know about my problems, happily said, "Just as I expected for my son. We must be flying in fancy seats, right?" I bet my husband boasted, saying he arranged everything and planned the trip, but the truth is I did all the work and he did nothing. They left all the paperwork and planning to me. Even though they hardly knew anything about airports, they wandered around on their own while I dealt with everything. They were clueless, even when it was time to board. I struggled to find them. The airport staff even asked, "Should we announce your boarding gate?" Becca didn't tell us. It was chaotic, but they didn't seem sorry. They complained that I was planning to have fun alone during the flight. They behaved quietly, but it was frustrating and embarrassing every time they called a flight attendant. After a few hours, we reached the country we were visiting. I thought I could finally relax at the hotel after going through immigration, but suddenly my husband looked sick and said he needed the bathroom. He handed me his bag and hurried off. I don't get why he got sick when we ate the same food. He had been smiling and talking to the flight attendant he liked. Maybe it's karma catching up with him. Then my mother-in-law started complaining, saying, "Becca, you're such a thoughtless daughter-in-law. How long are you staying here? My son planned this trip for me, just the two of us. You're just here for a free ride. You don't even work. It's bold of you to think you can enjoy this trip without contributing. Go home." I replied, "Are you sure I can enjoy myself with you around?" She said, "Okay then, I'll leave." So, I gave my husband's suitcase back to my mother-in-law and kept only my small bag. I didn't look at her and walked away. She looked surprised, which was funny because she had just told me to leave. I tried hard not to laugh. My husband kept running to the bathroom, so we didn't see each other. Luckily, I got a ticket back to America. I had planned to go home alone if I got the chance. I wouldn't mind being a guide if we got along, but not with them. It's too stressful, and I wouldn't gain anything. I can't help but smile when I think about what they'll do without me. They only speak English, but they can use translation apps on their phones. Still, I can't imagine my husband, who likes to brag, doing that. After safely making a few side trips, I went straight to the fancy hotel where my parents are waiting. My husband Jack wanted me to show respect to my parents, so I treated them to a luxury trip in upstate New York. They were supposed to travel there leisurely, enjoying the sights and meals along the way. I managed to meet up with them earlier than planned, which surprised them. When I quickly explained what happened, they were shocked. They couldn't believe I agreed to Jack's request. My phone was buzzing with calls and messages from Jack, but I ignored them. I turned off my phone and enjoyed my time with my parents. After our celebration, I got a call from the embassy. When I got home, here's what happened. Jack came back from the bathroom and couldn't find me, so he got really angry. He tried calling me but couldn't reach me, so he went to the hotel alone. But he didn't know where to go and got really confused. Someone who didn't speak English well offered to help and said they'd take him to the hotel, but instead, they robbed him and my mother-in-law. They took all their money, passports, and valuables. When the police found Jack looking lost on the street, they took him to the embassy for help. That's how he managed to contact me. The embassy asked me to come and get him. He couldn't get any money because his wallet with his bank cards was stolen, but I wondered why I, a stranger, had to help him. I told him I was already divorced from him. The truth is, I kept the divorce papers he threw at me a while ago. At the time, I decided not to go through with the divorce because it seemed like too much trouble, but now I'd had enough. I filled out the divorce papers as soon as I got back to the States. Surprisingly, the divorce went through smoothly. I already had a new place ready, and I signed the lease. While planning my trip, I didn't want to use the furniture I shared with him. It made me uncomfortable. I planned to buy all new furniture for my new place. So, I packed for both my trip and the move. I only need to bring my work tools and favorite clothes to the new place. I can easily have everything else delivered by courier at a later time. The embassy staff didn't ask me anything else, and our talk was over. Later, it seems my ex-mother-in-law convinced my ex-father-in-law to help so my ex-husband Jack and ex-mother-in-law could come back to the States. But then Jack, who was really angry, contacted me. "You left me and divorced me without even telling me, abandoned me." "No, I just followed your mom's orders to leave. If you're upset, talk to her. And don't forget about the business class flight I arranged for your return. It was my goodbye gift." I also reminded him that he was the one who first mentioned divorce. "I only filled out the divorce papers you had ready, doing what you wanted. Do you think making excuses like that will work? How much more do you want to embarrass me?" Embarrassed?
How?
If you want to feel embarrassed, I have an even better story. Want to hear it? What is it? Did you know you're a regular at a strip club? You're spending a lot of money on a favorite dancer there instead of helping with household expenses. But when her demands got too much, you ended up in debt, right? I found a debt collection letter for Jack at our house and had an investigation agency look into it. Despite Jack being a big spender, his obsession seemed to push the dancer away. She hoped he'd stop coming if she kept asking for more money and gifts. I wonder how Jack felt when he heard that. It's quite embarrassing, isn't it? If you cause any more trouble or contact me again, I'll tell your company about it. Understand? Being disliked by the dancer he likes so much would be a huge blow to Jack's ego. If this got out, it would be very embarrassing for him. Jack, who had been aggressive until then, just said, "Okay," in a weak voice and hung up. A few days later, my ex-father-in-law reached out to me. He said he had also divorced my ex-mother-in-law. I thought it was unnecessary since we were no longer family, but he wanted to share what he had found out about her true nature. He had become suspicious of her spending and discovered that she had used up his retirement savings on beauty treatments and cosmetic procedures. I had no idea about this since I'm not familiar with those things. When he asked for a woman's perspective, I couldn't help much because I hadn't noticed anything either. Maybe seeing her only once a year made the changes more obvious, but I truly hadn't seen any. I even asked him, "Are you sure it's for beauty treatments? She spent a lot, but I don't see any visible changes." "Perhaps there were small changes that only my ex-mother-in-law could notice," he said. It seemed like a waste of money to me. Naturally, my ex-mother-in-law, who was left with nothing, turned to her son Jack for help. But Jack, who used to be the family support, is drowning in debt since our divorce. He even lost his apartment because he couldn't pay the rent. Now he and his mother are living in a rundown apartment, but his mother refuses to work and keeps spending on beauty treatments. Jack is struggling to pay off his debts and cover his mother's expenses while working nonstop. It seems they still care about appearances even though their living conditions have worsened. If they're okay with it, I won't interfere. But I heard from others that the quality of the beauty treatments has dropped and she looks much older now. As for me, I appreciate the peace and freedom to focus on my work without anyone controlling me. It reminds me of the importance of living within my means.